So the other day I was thinking, is philanthropy working? Or at least the model that we're using now. I mean, think about it. We live in a time where more people are giving more money to generous causes than ever before. Between all the foundations that exist today, we're pouring billions of dollars each year into eliminating poverty and inequality. Yet, despite these billions of dollars, poverty and inequality are still shockingly prevalent around our society. And if a lack of money isn't the problem, then maybe it's our entire understanding of philanthropy itself. At Chinook Fund, it's a problem that we've been trying to solve for over 28 years, and since our foundation, we've believed that the key is to put philanthropy back in the hands of our communities. This year, we're launching our Giving Project, a socially just model of philanthropy that aims to do just that. By empowering the communities that we serve, Chinook Fund is able to fund the most effective social justice organizations in Colorado, all while staying accountable to the people that we serve. But in order to understand why the Giving Project works so effectively, we have to understand how it's different from regular models of philanthropy. Old school philanthropy has three main components: donors, foundations, and organizations. It starts with a group of passionate donors who have a vision for society. This is usually something like a world without hunger, or education for all. These donors then give their money to a like-minded foundation that shares in their vision. From there, the foundation is responsible for funding organizations that can implement their shared vision. The people who make these funding decisions are called grant makers, and they usually work closely with the donors who want to see where their money is going. Once the foundation makes its funding decisions, the funded organizations are responsible for carrying out the actual work. Make sense? Donors give to a foundation, foundations find the most effective organizations, and the organizations carry out the actual on-the-ground work. But there's a pretty big problem in this process. When donors start deciding which groups to fund, they carry their own biases with them. They may want to fund certain causes or organizations over others. This is only natural. Society has affected us all in different ways. The way that I have been affected by racism is completely different than the way that others have been affected by racism. And because of that, I may look at racism more or less seriously than others do. And that's the thing. Donors and activists are passionate people. But even the most progressive, politically aware people have a favorite cause, whether it's criminal justice reform, education, the environment, or whatever else. And you see, these personal biases become particularly problematic in the world of philanthropy, where a handful of people are making funding decisions for entire communities. For example, let's pretend that a local foundation is working to revitalize a low-income neighborhood. The grant-making body of that foundation, a group of mostly straight, white, wealthy men, is responsible for funding groups that can support local economic growth. And these guys have a strong passion for education. Together, they decide that the most effective way to revitalize the community is by funding education programs. They gather lots of donations, and before long, the foundation is able to fund some after-school programs, buy more textbooks, they're even able to get some laptops and classroom tablets. It's starting to look like a huge success, right? Well, not exactly. After a few years, and all this hard work, and all this money spent, the donors start to realize that this project never actually accomplished its intended goal. The quality of life in the community hasn't really improved, average income has stayed basically the same, and the donors can't seem to figure out what went wrong. Now, education is important, no doubt, and the donors had nothing but the best intentions, no doubt. But maybe education just isn't what the community really needed right now. Maybe what the community really needed was better access to food. Maybe people were struggling to find affordable health services. Maybe the community's biggest concern was drug use and access to drug rehabilitation. Now, if these were the community's biggest concerns, then what was the point of throwing money at textbooks and classroom iPads in the first place? See, and that's really the core problem with foundation work. Sometimes the needs of the community just don't match up with the biases of the donor. And how are the donors supposed to know what the community needed if they never included them in the process? Whether it's a program in sub-Saharan Africa or a program in an American neighborhood, we see this total disconnect between donors' passions and the community's needs all the time. So in order to work towards solutions that are not only effective, but are also relevant, foundations need to try to eliminate bias from their grant-making process. This is where the Giving Project comes in. In traditional philanthropy, donors are often foreigners to the community who go in with the goal of fixing the problem that they perceive. The Giving Project aims to solve these problems by creating a holistic, community-driven approach to philanthropy. So what does that mean? Well, Colorado is a diverse state with equally diverse needs, so we're intentional about who we recruit to make sure that Giving Project volunteers match that diversity in terms of race, class, sexual orientation, age, and ability. When community members drive the grant-making process, the foundation is way less likely to make inefficient funding mistakes. They're able to fund organizations that truly work towards effective, long-term change in their own communities. Because what foundations have seen time and time again is that nobody understands a community's problems better than the people who actually live in that community. More often than not, people from the community have more insight, more expertise, and more passion than outside donors do. And when they're given the power of grant making, the foundation and the donors are more likely to actually achieve their goals. The Giving Project volunteers are not merely symbolic figureheads who can be listened to and ultimately ignored. They are literally the drivers of the entire philanthropic process. They serve as Chinook Fund's grant makers, holding our ears to the ground and funding the most effective and socially just organizations. They work as educators, teaching their communities and their peers about different systems of oppression. And they serve as fundraisers, extending the power of philanthropy past just the wealthy elite and into their own communities. In today's age, money all too often translates to power. By putting philanthropic fundraising into the hands of local communities, the Giving Project helps to empower people, it exposes more people to the transformative power of philanthropic work, and ultimately, it balances out the rich white-dominated playing field of modern-day philanthropy. When community members have the power to drive this process, we are far less likely to see the negligence and inefficiency that has become all too familiar in modern-day philanthropy. It's made Chinook Fund one of the most effective, accountable, and socially just foundations in Colorado for over 28 years. And with the help of you, our Colorado community, we can continue fighting for a society that is just and equitable for all. Interested in joining the Giving Project? Want more information on Chinook Fund? Click on the link below.